All right.
Back in action.
Back in action. Let's see here. Brett asks, are you going to make the BB logo from Brent's Hat Designs the official logo with an enthusiastic set of question marks and exclamation points?
Well, so I'll take that one, and I think I can say enthusiastically no. We have a great logo. No, but you will probably see me do more variations of our brand. This is one of the things. We're not. I mean, the Facebook page also has a hero at the top that has a completely other version of Beaver Builder text on it. We like to be pretty loose with our brand. We put the beaver and the standard text on a lot of things, but when we get into swag, when we get into social media stuff, it's fun to just break that up. And so I think you'll see me continue to kind of have fun. And if any of you guys have seen some of the different beavers we've done, that's in kind of the same vein. We really like to play with our branding. Mm-hmm. So I think we'll see more of that. I want to get back in the groove of that to maybe look at some more swag at some point.
Bat Beaver.
Bat Beaver.
Yeah.
Really Batman.
Billy
Always
really,
be Batman.
Billy wants Bat Beaver really badly, and I haven't made it work yet. So it's not that I don't have versions of it, but they were bad. They were really bad. But yeah, so we're not going to change our logo, but we want to make some great looking caps and T-shirts and hoodies and whatever else and awesome stickers, and so you'll keep seeing, I think, different things from us in that regard.
I like that.
Yep.
You mentioned once before that brands can evolve, and our brand definitely has and will continue to evolve. And for what it's worth, I really like that logo too. That's one of my favorites. But I think if we were going to change our main logo,
I like the script better.
I do like this. I like the script too.
And this is why it'll never change, because we can't decide.
Well, and also that art was specifically prepared for embroidery. Because for the hat, and so you have these really specific dimensions with embroidery that you have to, you get your artwork prepared for. So
yeah, you sent it back a couple times. Huh?
Yeah, I did. That was a little bit of a long drawn out thing, but once you get it, it's like okay, never change this again. And so like our main beaver logo, we even have a kind of chunkier version of that, just because there are these situations where it's going to be really small or it's going to be embroidered or something special, and the standard art just doesn't work. So that's where the brand variations are for different uses, but we'll still keep we want the brand recognition to still be the beaver and the standard text for that. So yeah. You'll see more variations. It's fun to play with.
I'm surprised no one asked if we were going to name the beaver ever.
People have asked that before. I don't think he needs a name. Like, I just call him Beaver. I think he just should, like, to me, calling him Bob or something, that's just, I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be tough.
That feels like too much.
It'd be like renaming your child.
I know.
Yeah, wait till they're like 7 or 8 and you're like, you know what? You really need a name.
Naming is tough.
Well, thanks, Brett. Good question. We appreciate it. Okay, moving on. So Joe asks, any plans to bring back forums? They were popular and created a strong community. This question, obviously still, but this has come up a lot. We have a blog post. It's from a while back now, but a blog post about why we switched. Sorry.
Really got a phone call.
Quickly, though, so I don't want to dwell on this one too much, but when we were running forums, we were doing all of our support through the forum.
Yeah, it was tricky.
It started when it was just the three of us, and we were sitting in the office, and one of us would like raise our hand and be like, "Oh, I got this one, and I got that one," and that was our method to like distribute the tickets that came through. And then as the team started growing, it got really clunky using a forum. So we eventually switched over to Help Scout. But what happened when we were doing all of our support through the forum was that it forced people to visit the forum pages. And we've tried a couple of experiments, like we tried to set up a Reddit subreddit forum, we tried to set up a Stack Overflow forum, and the problem is that everyone's only got 24 hours in the day, and people aren't going to take time out of what they're otherwise doing to come to a new forum, at least what we've found. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons why Facebook is so effective, because people already spend a lot of their time on Facebook. and Facebook will kind of drop in bits of content from the Beaver Builder group or the Beaver Builder page, and people react to it, and the engagement is so much higher. But because we're not going to switch back to forums for support, we just can't get enough people to go there for them to gain traction. Again, though, if like a third party, the Beaver Builder group on Facebook was started by Dave. That wasn't something that was internal, and we have a few kind of third-party forums or people that have tried. If you want to try, like if a new forum system comes out, and frankly, too, I think forums are kind of outdated. I think they're on their way out.
Or they need to be reinvented. They're waiting for somebody to reinvent them.
Yep.
So they feel really clumsy.
And for they're not set up for support. Like if you look at if you got hundreds of tickets and you have like 10 different people working on them, how are we gonna weed through all these threads and organize them? And I'm answering this. These are mine. I mean, there's some attempts at that with like BBpress and plugins, and you can get there, but it's just it's not easy to manage, and it really honestly would probably support be less effective at scale in a forum. It's easier, when you're first starting out and it's manageable for like a small team. But once you need to start scaling it, it really falls apart. So yeah.
And I think for our time, if we're gonna spend time trying to answer those kind of questions, like we have documentation. That's where we want to spend our time and energy putting down the answers to the questions people are asking. So there is a doc waiting. And then the conversations are happening somewhere, and we can link off and say, here's the doc that talks about that.
I'm actually glad you brought that up, because that was one of our pushes that was, in response to us moving to Help Scout away from the forums, is that we knew that we were going to need better documentation. And we do have someone on the team that solely focuses on documentation, does an amazing job. You've probably seen Nancy around in the Facebook group, but yeah, our knowledge base is definitely a place to go if you need to get some answers. In a similar vein to where you searched forum, you can go search knowledge base, because a lot of the stuff that happens in Help Scout or that the support team deals with eventually becomes documentation.
Yeah, and to add a little bit onto that, one thing we actively do with Help Scout is, if a question's asked twice, it needs a doc. For the most part, I mean, some questions, don't necessarily need a doc, but we're pretty active on keeping up and furthering the documentation so it just gets better and better. Maybe even in the future adding more video content. There's lots of avenues we can go with the documentation. And if you haven't seen the KB, which I'm assuming most of you have, it's pretty epic. It's getting bigger and bigger.
It's being updated too, which wouldn't happen in old forum posts. Information would be outdated.
Yep.
Good point.
That's another thing with the forums. They can get outdated pretty quickly, and they can get, frankly, really big.
Right. You constantly need that reference to a version number of the software. If you're talking about Beaver Builder, you want to talk about one of the filters, an API kind of thing, or if you're talking about the functionality, you need to know what version you're talking about. With the docs, that they're going to be for the latest version of the software, or if we have an alpha out, there might be a special alpha doc that talks specifically about that. And if you just go searching through forums, in a thread, you don't really have that context.
Or security too, exchanging login info.
Oh, yeah.
Forums are just, I think they're a bit outdated. Like
they're not made for what we need.
Yeah.
Somebody could come along and really create a new forum platform, but it probably wouldn't look like BBpress or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And Facebook, I'll say too, we can move on, but Facebook has its weaknesses compared to the forums too. Facebook is not perfect, and there's lots of places
or Slack
where,
for that matter.
or Slack, or anything
Slack.
else really we've experimented with or tried. So I like the idea if forums get reinvented, let us know, and we'll we'll give it a shot.
There's another free project idea for you guys.
But yeah, thanks, Joe. Good question. Okay, there was one. Cami asked a similar kind of add-on question to that. Do you have any plans to add a comprehensive? Sorry, I'm not reading this right. She's asking if we're ever going to do video tutorials or do more video documentation.
Or classes, wasn't she talking
And
about?
she said paid courses would probably be a big win. And the answer, obviously, is yes. We're experimenting with video this year, as evidenced by this experiment. We didn't do video last year. We invested in the text documentation because we had 2.0 coming out, and we were completely changing the user interface. So any of the videos would have gone out of date. But we do. I don't know if we're. I can't. I don't want to what's the word? I don't want to commit to doing a full comprehensive set of documentation or tutorials yet, but we're moving in that direction, definitely.
And I don't think, I mean, to have good tutorials doesn't necessarily mean that they all have to be first party, somebody on the Beaver Builder team did them, right? We have people in the community that are doing great tutorials.
Definitely.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, actually. I think that's better. Because, you know, at the end of the day, what you want us focusing our time on is improving the software. And the downside to that is as soon as you make a video, then we come along and we release something that now the video is at least a little bit out of date. For the community to help us do those videos where we can do ones that are either the more technical ones or getting into maybe a topic that like a third party guy may not get into, some really specific stuff in Beaver Builder. Like, you know, we want to focus our energy on the stuff that we can do best and that maybe that nobody else could or would do. So I think when you get into tutorials, that's an area where you can say, okay, what kind of tutorials make sense for somebody in the community to do, and what kind should we take on ourselves and make sure really get explained thoroughly. You know, that's part of the thought process there.
Interesting. That's a good point.
And the course stuff, I know we've discussed a little bit.
Yeah.
It's always a neat topic.
Yeah, I like that idea. So thanks for those questions. Nick asks, how often do you wear makeup?
It's funny, we just talked about this before we got into this video chat.
Believe it or
Justin.
not. Yeah.
I'm wearing makeup right now.
You think we look this good naturally?
Yeah, right. We got prep. I used to play a band before I got on the web, and there may have been a show or two that I had a little eyeliner on, but.
All right, moving on. Thanks for making us laugh, Nick. That was good.
Awesome.
Dave Kuhar, what's up, Dave?
Dave
Asks, how much microbrew are you going to consume during the shooting of this video?
There's
good
no
point.
alcohol here.
It was tempting. We're trying to be
middle
well
of the day.
behaved.
It is noon,
It's
too.
early.
Dude.
It's early.
Should
Yeah.
we do another camera? No.
I'm going to go grab a beer.
We thought we wanted to do the video early in the day to make sure that we were able to answer questions.
Coherently.
Yeah.
We can take another
Clear
stab
head.
at this, you know, about
later.
9:30
Yeah,
or
right.
10 tonight. You'll get a totally different video.
Maybe we'll do that. Yeah, we'll leave the camera set up for when we come home from. We should have mentioned we're all in Austin, Texas, by the way. Brent lives out here, and we came out for a visit, so we are planning to go hit the town. It's Saturday night, and responsibly enjoy a beverage or two, perhaps.
Responsibly.
Thanks, Dave. Good question. Let's see here. We took a quick break, but we're back. We're going to finish strong here. So Dave, I didn't realize Dave had a real question. He says, do you have any plans of integrating Toolset-like functionality to Beaver Builder? Not necessarily field groups. ACF has that covered, but the ability to do what Views does, creating custom loops, etc. And that's a good question.
Who's taking it?
Well, one of you guys? I don't know. No, it's
Do you have something?
I mean, we don't have any product in the works right now in that regard, but I mean, there are a number of different layout scenarios that we're interested in trying to tackle, trying to create a great user experience around. Loops is one of them. Doing more dynamic things with data. You know, you look at the kind of websites that people are building, we want to make it easier for people to do that. So, I don't know that we have any plans to go and copy Toolset or anything like that, but you know, we'll still keep working in Themer and in Page Builder toward making better experiences for doing more complex dynamic components. Yeah, for sure.
I'll add on to that too. No like specific plans. That is something we've like talked about. I think it's interesting too, where it's like it's like almost like the Themer parts, but instead of it being just like a part, it's like this is actual like loop view that I'm building, and then I can go plug that in anywhere. I think that's interesting, and it's like definitely something that like we could explore. But yeah, I know like firm plans at the.
Well, and I think there's some different things to tackle in that I think are interesting. because if you look around at the websites people are building, you get a lot of heterogeneous grids where they have multiple different item types, so it's not just one item that's looping. You have different, if it's dare I say this post format or that post format, you can have a different item type. But also there's a kind of a layout thing to address there, specifically with CSS grids coming around in CSS. You can get into a lot of really interesting kind of nested blocks and different ways. There are a lot of cool things you can do with a blog, with a product grid, and so if we're wanting to build something for the future, if we're going to tackle an idea, we're going to tackle it, and those are the kind of things we want to move beyond just this idea of like, okay, can I repeat a blog post item down the page? We want to get into like, what is it people want to build, and then go and figure out how you do that. So that would be where I would put my attention into kind of really digging into what kind of loops do people need to build, in 2018 and further.
Yeah.
Good question, Dave. All right, where was it? Okay, here we go. Mark asks, what other plugin integrations do you have planned for Themer? Now that you have done them for Events Calendar and EDD, a membership plugin integration would be awesome. ... Well, that's a good question. We have a list of probably maybe 10 or 15 other integrations that we have in consideration. The challenge with the integrations where we integrate with another plugin is that we then have to maintain it moving forward, and we're dependent on, if WooCommerce or EDD or Events Calendar changes what they're doing, that means we need to scramble and update to remain compatible, which isn't a place that we want to put ourselves in unless there's a real value add in doing so. That said, I think there was an LMS plugin or two that was towards the top of the list. There were a few contenders that we did see value in that we might pursue.
I think a few of the more complex ones, those are good ones. It's kind of goes back to the tutorial thing a little bit. This is where we can tackle the ones that are a little bit more unique. If there's obviously any plugin out there that specifies custom post type, for the most part, could be great territory for a Themer integration. But that's really good third-party territory. And so the ones that are more or less straightforward, we'd love to see third parties take those on and use the integrations we've written as a pattern for that. And then let us focus on the ones that are maybe a little bit more complicated and difficult to deal with. That would be my thinking. At least.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, no, you guys, I think both said it all really well. There's some, clear contenders at the top of the list, and then, maybe having some tutorial content, or we even talked about doing like a Gerard's idea, right?
Yeah.
The kind of like hands-on day or whatever you'd call it.
Like a workshop.
Yeah. So really, because, it is pretty straightforward. People are building custom modules. And that's really a lot of it is just custom modules, some field connections. It's not a whole lot different. So, maybe we just need to do a better job on, docs and explaining how that's done too. Because, at the end of the day, we could do a few more integrations, but we can't do 10, 15, 20 more integrations. That's unrealistic for us to manage, I think, long term, definitely.
Themer's still less than a year old too, as it matures as a product and continues to get out there and people learn what it's about. I think more and more third parties will start jumping on there.
Yeah,
definitely.
Hopefully, of course. All right, so I would love if we could answer everything, but we're probably running short on time or long on time for this video, so I think we'll probably wrap it up with this one. Chris Powers asks, products like WIX and SquareSpace are huge brands, quotes, owned by large companies who advertise the crap out of these products, yet they're not great for anything beyond simple sites. How do you compete with them or combat that cheaper alternative? It's a good question. What I was thinking on this one is Gutenberg. I think I and we as a company, I think, have tried to remain very optimistic about what Gutenberg is going to mean for WordPress and what it's going to mean for us. And I think Gutenberg goes a lot deeper than just WordPress trying to compete with Squarespace and Wix. But I think the driving force behind Gutenberg is this idea that open platforms are a better place to be. When you use something like Squarespace or Wix, or even when you publish on Facebook or Instagram or these walled gardens, you're giving up control of your content. You're giving your content away for free to people that are then going to use that for their own financial gain and advertising and such. And we really believe that one of the great things about WordPress is that ability to have full control over what you create, and that hopefully Gutenberg will make WordPress over the next 5-10 years a viable alternative for publishing online.
I would actually, my take on those is a little bit more optimistic in their favor, but sites like Wix and SquareSpace, what they offer is, they're offering a great user experience right out of the box, right? You're not having to set up very much. You just get to start, and that's because you have all these core assumptions that are just made for you. And I would say there are a couple steps on the journey of where your website goes. A lot of people are going to start out with a Wix site or a Squarespace site or one of that, something hosted like that, because it is easy. It is easy to get started. But eventually, it's not even so much the problem of, that your content is in this proprietary space. It's that you're going to hit a limitation, right? You're going to hit a place where you're trying to express some kind of business logic, or you're trying to integrate with something that you can't integrate with. And that's when most people find themselves in an open source space like WordPress. And that's where we would generally come in, because we want to offer as much of that easy user experience that you might have on a Squarespace, right? I mean, I don't think anybody would argue that Squarespace isn't a really easy way to edit a website, right? If you log in, they have a builder as part of their layout tool, and you can go in there and edit your pages. It's very easy. But as soon as you want to get into something more complex, unless you know a developer that writes Squarespace themes, it's very limiting. And so I think on the journey of websites, as people go through these things, they will eventually find themselves in a more open space, but you don't want to lose all that great experience that you had back when you were in the proprietary space. And so that's where I feel like we come in with trying to take WordPress, which is, out of the box. WordPress isn't that really clean, easy experience. It's part of it, right? But it's not all of it. And they come to us, and then you put Beaver Builder on top of that, and you get a little bit more of that back. You get a little bit more of that ease of use, that front-end experience, and any way that we can get in there and try and smooth out the rough edges, that's what we want to be doing. Does that?
Yeah.
I may be way off the question now.
No, I think that's good.
That's a great way of looking at it, actually. When I first heard that question, I kind of thought of the fact that we're kind of catering to different user types, but that's a great way of looking at it.
We're catering to the same user at a different point in their life. It's a lifespan issue.
Yeah, no, that's mind blown over here right now.
Well, I had the same thought too, that we're not necessarily competing directly with Squarespace and Wix. It's WordPress, and I mean what you get out of Squarespace and Wix is that you can sign up and start immediately, which I think the more we're seeing managed WordPress hosting progress, it's going to become less of an issue. Before, 10 years ago, get a cPanel site and trying to figure out the famous 5-minute install and all that, and it was a long journey to actually get to building your website, where the proprietary platforms you just jump in and you're building, but they are limiting. And at some point, you're going to want more. One of our buddies who's building a startup, and he's doing the website himself, and he started on Squarespace, but then he asked to use Beaver Builder and WordPress. He wanted to see what it was about, and he just went to town and was able to do a whole lot more, installing plugins. He built his own custom learning centers and directories and things like this. It was really cool to see how he had went from Squarespace and then eventually went over to WordPress and was able to do all this with the tools and things that WordPress has to offer. So I don't know. I think I kind of ventured off there too and lost my point somewhere along the way. But
that's okay.
To circle back, I don't think we're necessarily competing with them. I mean, it is WordPress, and there's the Gutenberg push and all that kind of stuff.
I think there will continue to be a push-pull between the platforms that are in the open space and the platforms that are proprietary, because companies are still they're gonna try and keep providing a better user experience for creating websites, right? And you've even seen that, like if you go look at Wix has a project called Wix Code right now that's trying to break down those walls of it being, they want the great experience they want their experience, but they want a developer that understands their platform to be able to come in, break through the wall, integrate with a third-party service, write the code that they want to put on the page and not be subject to whatever Wix decides the code's going to be, and so I think you're gonna have these two spaces that constantly push and pull on each other, and that creates great friction. That's awesome friction, right? Because we want to bring more of that into the open, and we want to see if we can contribute back to kind of the way people think about websites in both spaces. And so I think different people are at a different place in their lives, or businesses, they go through the same thing, right? And sometimes what you want is easy. If you dial back 5 years, like before I was using Beaver Builder, or there was a Beaver Builder almost.
Yeah. It's just a gleam in our eye 5 years
right.
ago.
I would start prototyping a site on SquareSpace. Because that's just because I could just go, right? I already had a user account. You fire up a dev site, you don't have to pay for anything yet. I have some time and I can just kind of start playing. And, it was a lot more trouble to fire up and install WordPress. And then you try and start kind of sketching in a theme what you're going to ultimately do for a client. But you understood that, you started in SquareSpace and later it's probably not going to launch in SquareSpace because I'm going to hit a wall somewhere. So I think, that's not quite the case anymore, but maybe in some areas it still is like that, right? They create something better, then that's on us to come along and kind of meet that challenge.
Yep.
So I don't think that's going away. And I don't think it's, what's better, proprietary systems or open systems. I don't think that's the question. I think
the competition is good for everyone.
Competition's great.
Everyone gets to leapfrog and kind of play that cat and mouse, and everyone moves forward quicker.
Right.
I wonder if the Wix code is in a response to Gutenberg, because it's WordPress has the developer experience, Wix has the new user easy experience, and so now WordPress is trying to work on the new user easy experience, and Wix is oh crap, we got to work on the developer experience, or it's they're both coming.
I mean, everybody's got this. It's about where you start, right? It's about where you start a website. So if a business owner comes along and they build out their first 10 pages on their website, and they're like, my website's awesome, right? They built it out on Wix or Weebly or Squarespace or whoever. And then, something needs to happen. Somebody comes in and says, look, it's not SEO'd right. Somebody comes in and says, look, I want this custom thing. I want a form that's going to do some special business logic. And the developer goes, okay, well, you can't because you're on Wix, right? I think it's their response to that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's their response to saying, we can't.
That's why people go to WordPress, right? Because
right. Then at that point,
Wix,
that developer is going to come in and say, I have to blow up your website. Right,
Yeah.
and now you're paying a large rebuild. Sometimes, back when we were building them at the media, sometimes it's less than a year after you've just had a website built, and now you're blowing it up and starting over because you have a vendor come in and say, I have to blow up your site and start over because you're on a platform that's too restrictive. So I think you continue to see those kind of things to try and address that friction. Like, why would you leave Wix? Why would you leave Squarespace? Obviously, they don't want you to.
Sure.
Right?
Well,
they don't want you to leave because then you're not going to be paying them.
that wouldn't make sense.
That wouldn't be so good. But I think that's friendly competition.
Yeah.
All right. That was a good one to riff on, I think, for the
Yeah.
end. I think that,
Probably keep going on that one for a while.
Yeah.
There's a lot of angles to that one.
Who was that? Thank you, Chris, for that question. And yeah, I think with that, again, sorry we couldn't answer everything, but this was really fun. We might see ourselves doing something like this in the future.
Totally.
Thanks for everyone that asked questions, and that if you made it this far into the video, God bless you. All right, what do you say, guys? Should we high five to call it?
Sounds good.
Get me. Yeah.
All right, y'all. High five.
See you guys.